Hello, you beautiful people. Mama Magic here with another Commander deck tech. Today, I bring you a fun deck that will make everyone hate you. Kykar's Tax, Not Stax deck. The goal of this deck is to slow your opponents down by taxing them for most all their spells or actions until we can win. We only want to tax our opponents without causing any stacks interactions, such as causing our opponent's permanents to enter the battlefield tapped, or have any effects which would prevent their permanents from untapping. Sure, some people say tax effects are a form of stacks, but I disagree. Taxes are taxes, and staxes are staxes. Our fearless leader is Kykar, Wind's Fury, a 3/3 bird wizard for 1 blue, red, white. They have flying and say, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. They also have the ability to sacrifice a spirit to add a red mana. Therefore, we want to utilize casting lots of non-creature spells to give us access to spirit tokens, which we can use to defend, attack, and sacrifice for mana. As stated, we want to tax our opponents, so we've jammed 21 taxing effects into this deck. It's important to make sure you don't tax yourself, so any tax effects should only affect your opponents. Let us start with the protection from being attacked taxes. Here we have Ghostly Prison, Propaganda, Sphere of Safety, Archangel of Tithes, and Windborn Muse, who is also a spirit that we can sacrifice for mana in a pinch. These cards are quite important as people hate tax collectors, so we need to protect ourselves from the mobs. Next, we have our ramping package in Smothering Tithe, followed up by our card draw taxes in Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study, and Esper Sentinel. Now, people are going to be wanting to target our tax effects, so we've taxed that too. Monastery Siege, Unsettled Mariner, and Hinata, Dawn Crowned, all increase the cost of spells that target us or permanents we control. Unsettled Mariner has the added bonus of taxing abilities that target our stuff too. What if your opponent wants to cast a spell? Let's just generically tax any spell they cast with Spell Tithe Enforcer, Chancellor of the Annex, Godfarer Statue, or the beloved Grand Arbiter Augustine IV. If they want to cast a creature spell, we have a tax for that too, in Soul Barrier and Isolation Cell. Instant and sorceries get taxed from Wandering Archaic, and Dovin, Hand of Control, who also taxes artifacts. And lastly, we have Aura of Silence to tax both artifacts and enchantments. With all this taxing going on, we need a way to cast our own taxing effects, so we've added a nice ramp package of 12 cards, starting things off with Smothering Tithe again. Then we head into our mana rocks. We've got 9 of those that are all 2 mana or less. Wayfarer's Bauble is a nice little artifact to ramp a land right onto the battlefield. Lastly, we have Jeska's Will, which can give us a nice burst of mana and provide a bit of impulse card draw too. We also have a secret ramp card in Mana Drain, which should give a chunk of colorless mana on our next turn while countering an opponent's card. The nice thing with all these small mana rocks is that they should each produce a spirit with Kykar as well. Now that we know how to tax and get our cards out sooner, let's focus on our card advantage. As already mentioned, we have our taxing trifecta in Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study, and Esper Sentinel. We've also already mentioned Mindstone, which in a pinch you can sacrifice for a card draw. We went over Jeska's Will, which gives you 3 impulse draws, and although you want it for its taxing effects, Monastery Siege could instead allow you to loot every turn. Although this isn't actually card advantage, it's more like card fixing. In the same case, we have Jeskai's Ascendancy, which allows you to loot whenever you play a non-creature spell. I prefer the raw power of Whirlwind of Thoughts, which straight up lets you draw a card whenever you cast a non-creature spell. Joyra, Weatherlight Captain, gives you a card draw on each historic spell cast. Those are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas, in case you forgot. How about turning each spirit into 2 cards? Well, we have Skull Clamp to help us out there. Urza, Lord High Artificer, gives great free random card advantage, and it is a secret ramp card, turning your non-mana rock artifacts into mana rocks. Narset, Enlightened Master, lets us cast non-creature spells within the top 4 cards of our deck without paying their mana costs whenever she attacks. Elsha of the Infinite lets us play non-creature, non-land cards off the top of our deck at instant speed to boot. Oracle's Vault can actually do some strong work in this deck, especially if you have Elsha out to look at the top card of your library. I really love Ugin the Ineffable. Not only does Ugin reduce your colorless spells, but he essentially turns the top card of your library into spirit creatures, which, when they leave the battlefield, are put into your hand. Don't forget that Kykar can sacrifice these spirits to provide mana and put that card into your hand. The Immortal Sun gives a lot of advantages, including an extra draw every turn. However, be aware it is a bit of a non-bow with our planeswalkers, but we mostly use them for their static abilities, well, except for Ugin. Lastly, we have Factor Fiction to round out our card advantage package. Now, with all our taxes, our opponents will be gunning for us, so we need some extra protection besides the tax to attack us package. A series of nice counterspells would do nicely. We already mentioned our ramping counter in Mana Drain. Free counterspells such as Force of Will, Force of Negation, and Fierce Guardianship should be reserved to stop our opponents from winning or messing with our boards. It's tempting to shoot them off at the first biggest threats, but try to hold back. No white deck would be complete without the best protection piece out there. Of course, Teferi's Protection needs to be in this deck, along with Boros Charm, which provides a bit of flexibility, but I personally love the mode that gives all of our permanents indestructible. Lastly, we have Swift Foot Boots to keep Kykar safe. Sometimes, protection requires us to be offensive instead of defenses. So, we've included some removal too. Swords to Plowshare, Generous Gift, Aura of Silence, and Field of Ruin can all provide some targeted removal where needed. Of course, we need the big mama and baddie of the multiverse, Cyclonic Rift. But a fun little bonus card that we have in this deck is Fade Away. It's not really that amazing, but fits the theme really well, and can really take your opponents by surprise if you play it right. Taxing our opponents is great, but we do need a way to close out the game. We have a few win cons included in our deck. While we've been taxing our opponents, we've also been sneakily building a board of spirits to swing for lethal. Jeskai Ascendancy can pump all of our creatures up pretty quickly in a single turn. Surge to Victory can create a major blow to our opponents out of nowhere. Mirror Entity, who's a spirit too, can turn all our creatures into giant beaters. And lastly, although I feel it's a lousy way to win the game with, we have Approach of the Second Sun in this deck. There are a few good stuff cards we haven't gone over yet. Most of them involve recursion, such as Brilliant Restoration, Cosmic Intervention, and Dance of the Manse. 2 lands have added recursion utility. These are Academy Runes and Hall of Heliod's Generosity. We also have 2 clones to copy our tax effects in Mirror Maid and Clever Impersonator. And finally, to round everything out, Saheeli, Sublime Artificer, provides another means of creating creature tokens for our non-creature spells. A good number of lands is 36. I wouldn't suggest going below that. There are plenty of other cards that you may love or prefer over this list, or want to swap out because you don't have one of these cards, and by all means, make some changes if you so desire. Just remember, Commander is a game of fun, and this is a fun deck to play. However, some people may get salty playing against this deck, so use it only on occasions. Comments are always welcome. Thanks for joining me for this Commander Kykar Tax, not Stax, deck tech. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, be happy, be true, be you. Thanks. Bye.